The theme of this event is moments in motion, and currently there certainly is a lot of motion in technology, and especially around artificial intelligence, which has suddenly delivered on some of the promises it had made during the last century by generating plausible text and believable images. And to some of us, this is just exciting and fascinating. But some may also feel a little intimidated by such a technology that is becoming more and more powerful by the day. So I would like to know from you, by a show of hands, who feels sometimes a little afraid of AI? Well, let's spend some time today and look a little at this question. Should we be afraid of AI? When I was a student, 35 years ago, I left a lecture hall under protest. The lecture was given by a German AI pioneer, Jörg Siegmann, who predicted that within one generation, AI would be sufficiently advanced that we could attach artificial limbs to the human nerve system. And that within 2 generations, it would be sufficiently advanced that we could grant database access directly from our brains. I had recently read the book Gödel, Escher, Bach, in which the cognitive scientist and physicist Douglas Hofstadter explores the similarities between the math of Kurt Gödel, the art of Moritz Cornelius Escher, and the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. And one central insight I had from that book was Gödel's incompleteness theorem, which basically says that no formal system will ever possess the power to completely describe itself. So I raised my hand in the lecture and I said, well, starting from your own premise, the human brain as a formal system, doesn't this contradict Gödel's incompleteness theorem? And I went on to briefly explain the theorem, and then I said, well, it could be proven that humans would never even fully understand themselves, let alone reconstruct something like their own intelligence. That would be impossible. So the prof looked at me across the lecture hall and said, look, what nonsense you believe. Upon which I left the lecture hall under protest. My daughter is a student now. So one generation has passed, and it turns out his first, as much as I hate to admit, his first prediction came out true. We can now attach artificial limbs to the human nerve system. And with some practice, people can actually use them as if they were their own. About the second prediction, I still have my doubts, but hey, I was proven wrong before. So, should we be afraid of AI and its enormous power? And there are certainly famous advocates for this line of thought, starting from Nobel Prize winner Geoffrey Hinton, who basically said that human intelligence might just be an intermediate step on the ladder to something higher. Another big eye-opener were my discussions with a postdoc I had recently hired at LMU in my group 9 years ago, and he's a psychologist. And I told him in the beginning about my still existing confidence that AI would never reach the power of human intelligence because it could be proven that no formal system would ever fully understand itself. And he looked at me and smiled and gave me an answer that was completely obvious to him, but not to me at the time. And he said, you know, that's not actually needed. You just manage to sound clever enough, and then people will happily admit that you are clever. It's all on the surface. And then he went on to explain about the many fallacies and misconceptions of the human mind by which it can be tricked into perceiving and feeling things that are not there in reality. And after some thought, this really shattered my worldview, because this argumentation that had made me feel safe from machines for all these years just had fallen apart. So here are some examples of the thoughts he gave me. For one thing, we cannot help but humanize technology. And this goes back to an experiment that was published in the 1990s as the media equation, and it was found that humans felt hesitant to criticize a computer to its face, while they happily criticized it behind its back. So we attribute feelings and intelligence to machines. You may say, that's academic, that's not a practical example. So let's take something more practical. Let's look at therapeutic robots. And that's already a business model. It was found that giving a cuddly robotic seal with big eyes to dementia patients may not be as good as sustained human contact, but it still is better than nothing, and it increases their well-being. So here you go, robots addressing some of our emotional needs. You may say that's just for old people, but believe me, if you were my age, that would directly concern you. So I continue with something that's closer to your own life and to your own reality. By a show of hands, who of you finds themselves occasionally spending more time with their mobile phone than they had originally intended to? I rest my case. But have you ever wondered why that is? There are some so-called dark patterns of usability built into these technologies that we're using, and one of them is infinite scrolling. It can be traced back directly to an experiment in which humans ate 73% more soup from a bowl that refilled itself than from a regular soup bowl. So a very simple shortcoming of human judgment, tricking us into eating more and into spending more time with our mobile phones. The funny thing is, those people didn't even notice. They didn't even feel more full after that experiment. Another one that you may know from yourself or from your teenage kids, if you're my age, short-form videos. In a study in my own research group at LMU, we looked at the impact that short-form videos have on cognitive abilities and on our ability to follow through with an initial goal. And we found that the short and fast cut videos and the frequent context switches actually impaired cognitive abilities. And they diminished the chances of us following up with our initial intentions. So there you go. Computers can steal not only our time, but also our intentions and our focus. And finally, a word on something as complex as trust. The same postdoc in my group, the psychologist, designed an experiment that is based on a historical experiment by Solomon Asch, a social psychologist. And he mixed a robot into a group of humans. And then participants in the study had to judge the length of a line and determine which other line was of equal length. And then everybody from the group gave their answer, a mix of right and wrong answers, and then the participant had to make up their minds whether they would believe their own judgment or conform to something somebody from the group had said. It turns out that the participants believed the robots more than their fellow humans. So it seems that voluntarily we put artificial intelligence above our own intelligence. So all of this is not even using any advanced AI technologies. All of these are simple effects of the human mind. So even without AI, we attribute feelings and intelligence to technology. We see that they can fulfill some of our emotional needs. They can steal our time and our focus, and we even trust them more than other humans. And so this is not just a single case. This is not by chance, but it's actually rooted in the principle that some of these platforms don't have our best interest in mind. They have their commercial interest in mind. And, now imagine such technologies in the hands of a person who does not have only a commercial interest, but may want to secure or obtain political power. Now, when ChatGPT came around a few years ago and shattered the worldview of many of us by the believable text it generated and by its apparent understanding of real-world questions, some voices started to raise again, and this AI pioneer Jeff Hinton said that we should really carefully consider our next steps, because these technologies could eventually become very harmful to humanity. And even Douglas Hofstadter, the author of the book Gödel, Escher, Bach, said that he's largely unsure where this may take us, and that he finds some of his own beliefs from 30 years ago shattered by recent AI developments. And in an interview, he said that these things just seem to understand. Now I ask you to pay attention how he puts it. He says, they seem to understand. And what did we say earlier? You just managed to sound smart enough. People will happily admit you are smart. So we are judging on the surface. We're judging from the outer appearance. And it's a dilemma, since we cannot simply plug cables into a human brain and measure intelligence like we would measure a physical unit. But instead there is no other way than to judge on the surface. And even computer science pioneer Alan Turing is doing the same thing. He postulated the Turing test, which allows you to decide whether an entity is intelligent or not. And it goes like this. If you are talking to an entity behind a wall, you don't know whether it's human or computer, and you're talking to it through a limited channel, say for example by typing text, and you can't make up your mind whether this is human or computer, then you have all the rights to call that thing intelligent. Now, that means all that is our projection in our head. So we're just judging on the surface. And AI has really become a very powerful tool to support these mechanisms where things can appear smart. AI has become a powerful tool to supply us with the right content that confirms our preconceived notions and that supports the opinions that we have already. AI has become a very powerful tool to generate content even, and we have lost somehow the notion of truth. It has become hard to distinguish between true photos and fakes. It took me literally 5 minutes to generate this photo, and give that one or two more years and it will be hard to really distinguish. We cannot distinguish between fake news and real news. So it's become vital to scrutinize our sources of information and to really see, not just believe what on our online portal says, but really try and check the sources for our information. So this is quite a dark picture, I realize, that I'm painting here. So I try to turn that around a little and give you some concrete take-home advice. For one thing, we should always try to stay alert and recognize all the exploits and deep fakes around us. We have seen one tonight with endless scrolling, and I sincerely hope that next time you find yourself doom scrolling, you will at some point wake up and say, wait a minute, that's on purpose. Somebody's selling my screen time here, and then stop scrolling. And we also have to count on the fact that there are fakes around us. So let's try to fight for good quality journalism, for public service broadcasters, and for balanced reporting, because that will be really vital to keep us informed in the future and not just be drowned in fake news. And the second one is limit your time with machines. We cannot claim to recognize all the threats, but we can at least limit the damage. So whenever you find yourself spending more time with your mobile phone next time, make an honest assessment whether all this time was well spent, and if the answer is no, then set a limit. Because that will, at the same time, give you more time to spend with humans. And that will have multiple benefits. For one thing, it will satisfy a basic human need for connectedness. On the other hand, it will also help you calibrate your worldview much better. Because those humans in your physical neighborhood will invariably provide a much wider mix of opinions and worldviews than those in your designed and filtered digital neighborhood. And finally, and we've heard that in an earlier talk tonight, don't conform to the machines. I work in human-computer interaction, and I often hear the sentence, I don't get computers. I'm too stupid for them. And this self-blaming always makes my toenails curl, because any technology that's sufficiently advanced should really be adapted to the human, not vice versa. As humans, we should insist that these technologies respect our human limitations and shortcomings in a positive and constructive way. And I mean technology in the widest sense, from cars to voice assistants to mobile phones to robots eventually. Let's not blame ourselves, but let's just insist in technology designed according to our needs. So, to give an answer to that initial question, should we be afraid of AI? My answer is no. We should not be afraid of the tool, AI, but we should be afraid of the humans behind it and using it, because they might exploit AI technologies to somehow supply us with information that just confirms our notion that we drift apart as a society, each in their individual bubble of truth. And that's a pity, because AI actually is a very powerful tool. It can do just as many positive things as it can do negative things. It can optimize energy use. It can detect cancer cells. So let's not so much look at the tools that humans use, but let's look at the humans that use these tools, because those other humans might be the threat. Thank you.